Here is a world of communication, bringing together all people in a new era of understanding.
Elektrische Reporter.
Das Wissen der Welt, liebe Zuschauer daheim an den Empfangsgeräten oder von wo auch immer Sie uns gerade zusehen. Das Wissen der Welt wollten schon viele Menschen auf vielen unterschiedlichen Wegen zusammentragen. Wikipedianer wollen es aufschreiben, Google will es durchsuchbar machen und Brewster Kahle, der will es archivieren. Vor ziemlich genau 10 Jahren gründete Kahle das Internetarchiv und seitdem sammelt er so ziemlich alles ein, was bei 3 noch nicht von den Servern ist. Wo das alles einmal hinführen soll, was er von der Art und Weise hält, in der Google Bücher digitalisiert und was wir mit Songs von Gilbert und Sullivan machen sollen, das erklärt uns nun Brewster Kahle.
The Internet Archive started collecting web pages about 10 years ago. The idea is to collect a copy of all of the web pages that are publicly accessible on the net. Not just the home pages, but all of the pages down so that you could reproduce the web as it was. So you could surf the web as it was. Be an out-of-print web pages service, if you will. And it started with about 30 million pages, is sort of what it was to collect a copy of the web at the time. And it's been going on every 2 months ever since. And we're now at around 4 billion pages to collect a copy of the web. It's about 700 or 800 terabytes now, we think, of compressed storage. So it's over a petabyte of web pages. And, oh gosh, what is a petabyte? It goes mega, giga, tera, peta. So it's a lot. We made a Wayback Machine. So if you go to archive.org, you could type in an old URL for a old website and see past copies and click around the web as it was. We also have movies, music, books on the Internet Archive website on archive.org. We've got about 60,000 recordings of musical recordings and lectures and the like in audio. We've got about 30 or 40,000 different videos. Some of them are old movies. Some of them are new internet-type movies that are, again, available for people to see, enjoy, download, and often, if the license is Creative Commons or the like, they can reuse it, cut and paste from it, and make new things from it, and add it again to the archive. So that's what we're here for, is we're a library in the digital world. Free public access to great works. So we built 2 things at the same time. One was the Internet Archive, which is a non-profit archive, if you will. And another was Alexa Internet, which is a company that is short for the Library of Alexandria. The idea is to try to organize the web and catalog it, if you will. What is every web page about out there? And that company was sold to Amazon.com in 1999. But the organization between the two was interesting, and I'd like to see this model happen more. Alexa Internet was collecting copies of the web, and it donated a copy to the Internet Archive with a 6-month time delay. 6 months was to try to knock off the commercial edge, so it wasn't diminishing the value of what Alexa had, and that worked very well. Alexa's continued to do that ever since, and it's where a lot of the web collection for the Internet Archive comes from. And even though Alexa was bought by Amazon.com, Amazon didn't see any problem with having things after 6 months go into a non-profit. So I think this idea of 6 months is a good sort of duration. This copyright that's become 100 years has become just completely nuts. It doesn't reflect any form of reality for most of the materials that are out there. So the Internet Archive and Alexa started with a relationship that's worked for a decade. The Internet Archive is a non-profit organization in the United States. It's funded from foundations, mostly. Also from contracts from libraries, national libraries, commissioned the Internet Archive to make collections of their national websites, all the websites within their country. So, for instance, France and Australia have done this, and that's a funding source for the Internet Archive. And recently, Yahoo and Microsoft has commissioned the Internet Archive to digitize books that are in libraries, public domain books, that they can then use on their websites as well as everybody else on the net. How can you find things? Actually, we have a real trouble with that. It's hard. And our website is not a shining example of organization. It's we've tried some techniques that we've borrowed from places like Amazon.com. The idea of having reviews and having it so that the most popular can get cited, or very permanent URLs so people can go and link to things and be able to make use of it afterwards. We've tried some of the things to make it searchable and the like, but in general, it's not that easy. We are an archive. It's not a bookstore, which really sort of says, here, see this. But we've tried some techniques. The web collection is so massive that actually we don't even have search on that yet. We have search on some parts of it, but it's all based on URL to be able to look around the web collection. But the books, music, and video, it's a searchable collection, kind of like an Amazon, just not quite as good. I'm very glad that people are starting to pursue book digitization and the like. I just hope that it's done with a balance, with the right balance. Publishing and libraries have always worked in parallel, but there's some organizations that are specifically making libraries very, very difficult. Google, for instance, is digitizing some great libraries, but their contracts, which were actually secret contracts with libraries, which is a little bizarre. But anyway, they were secret until they got sued out of them by some governments. They found that those are under such restrictions that they're pretty useless, the copies that go back to the libraries, that pretty much Google is trying to set themselves up so that they're the only place that you can get to these materials. The only library, the only access. The idea of having only one company control the library of human knowledge, it's a nightmare. I mean, this is what, there are. 1984 is a book that's about how bad the world would be if this really came about, if few governments control and corporation control on information goes too far. So, no, there's a great deal of urgency to build an alternative, one that has corporate interests protected as well as the public interest. We're working with Yahoo, Microsoft, with an open content alliance to do digitization that does bring a balance. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing where, yes, it'll be corporate control of our libraries or it will be completely public. Balances can be struck. It's just not being struck by a couple of the companies that are going at it now. Today is really an exciting day in that the European Archive, kind of a European equivalent of the Internet Archive, their website is being unveiled. And it's got a few collections from some great European organizations. It's just the start. But the British Archives has got some movies that have been digitized and put up there. The Italian National Library web collection is up there, which is great. And a really special thing from the Dutch Audiovisual Library is some audio recordings from long-playing records from the early 1950s. Classical music recordings, which are fantastic. And what's somewhat interesting about that audio collection is under United States law, these things are not able to be heard. But under European and most of the rest of the world, they're perfectly okay. So when I was looking around at the website before I came, when I was back in the United States, I couldn't hear these recordings. But when I got here, I could, because the copyright law for recordings is a little bit better balanced than the United States law. So we're hoping that there's this wave of pre-1956 long-playing records and 78s of classical music that go out on the internet, and the European Archive will do hosting for this. If people do digitization of their records, they can upload them. Of course, people can download these and put them on CDs or make rap remixes of old Gilbert and Sullivan performances. should be great. Our mission is to help bring universal access to all human knowledge. And fantastically, this goal, which sounds so out of reach, is actually technologically within our grasp. You could take all the published works of humans, ever since Sumerian tablets, and be able to make digital representations of those that could be accessed by everyone around the world. That's within our grasp. If you take the technological storage requirements to just take all of the books or all records ever recorded, back to cylinders and the old 78 CDs, it's actually doable in the tens of millions, low hundreds of millions of dollars realm. And that kind of money is doable. Yes, it takes some concerted effort to be able to pull this off, but it's doable to go through our libraries and archives, digitize copies of these, put them on servers, and then make them accessible over the internet. Now, bringing things on the internet doesn't get you to everybody in the world, but I've traveled a bit, and recently I've not been any place that wasn't a day's walk from an internet cafe. Those cafes are just everywhere, the people are. So at least there's maybe a day's walk to be able to get it to people. And if you digitize a book, if you do it right, if you do it not in a public spirited way, as opposed to some of the commercial efforts that are going on, you can download and print and bind them. And so that you could actually deliver these to people that actually are quite far from the net. So the idea of having the great library, the Library of Alexandria, again, but now let's make it accessible, I think could be one of the great things that we do in our generation. It would be our contribution, if you will. Where the last generation put a man on the moon, let's do something really terrific with going and making information available widely.
Die im Jahre 2002 eröffnete neue Bibliothek von Alexandria beherbergt übrigens auch eine Kopie des Internetarchivs, sozusagen ein Backup 2.0, was uns wie von Zauberhand zu der Frage führt: Was ist eigentlich Web 2.0?
Web 2.0 ist, wenn du statt einer Einkaufsliste eine Blogcall führst.
Vielen Dank. Die Uhr kann stehen bleiben, die Zeit geht weiter, sagt ein sorbisches Sprichwort und hat damit dummerweise sogar recht. Denn schon sind wir am Ende unserer heutigen Sendung. Ich verabschiede mich, nicht jedoch, ohne Ihnen eine inspirierte Woche gewünscht zu haben. Bleiben Sie uns gewogen und schalten Sie auch das nächste Mal wieder ein. Bis dahin bleibe ich Ihr elektrischer Reporter.
In was für einer Gesellschaft wollen wir leben? Wir brauchen Ihre Antworten, Ihre Ideen und konkrete Projekte. Machen Sie mit unter www.diegesellschafter.de.
Im kreischenden Dickicht der Feeds, News und Wichtigkeiten retten sich die einen in den Solipsismus ihrer Subjektivität, die anderen in den Glauben an die Evolution. Evolution der Moral, der Technologie, der Menschheit überhaupt. Dieweil die nie in OpenBC zu finden sein werden, den Telefonhörer auflegen.